Well, hello class. Today we're back with this week's lesson. We're going to be reviewing everything we've learned about the elements of poetry and figurative language so far. So from the beginning, we started talking about what poetry is, and we said that poetry is writing that uses a unique rhythm, language, and style to express ideas, emotions, and experiences. Now, where can poetry be found? It can be found in music, in lyrics that express certain ideas or emotions and use certain rhythm, in social media, even in social media captions. There is poetry, and the most obvious one in literature, which would be poems and stories. Now, the first few things we discussed were simile and metaphor. Now, a simile, we said, was a comparison using like or as, while a metaphor is a direct comparison, which does not use like or as. An example of a simile would be, she sparkled like the stars at midnight, pardon the error there, which uses the word like to compare this woman to the stars at midnight. Now, a metaphor, an example would be, she was the sun, the moon, and the stars to him, and we're saying that literally this woman is the sun, the moon, and the stars to this man. Now, we're not using like or as, we're directly comparing them. Now, we talked about personification, which is giving humanistic abilities to or characteristics to a non-human form. That's saying that a flower wept or cried. We know that flowers don't actually do this. We're giving them human abilities. Now, a hyperbole is an extreme exaggeration, which means, like, for example, I told you 1,000 times not to go there. You didn't actually say it 1,000 times, you're exaggerating. And onomatopoeia is a word that literally represents a sound, like boom, moo, oink, any of the above. By the way, you can go back on this video and read the examples that I haven't read if you need to. Now, symbolism is the use of symbols to mean a certain idea rather than the literal sense. Remember, we read a poem called Hope is a Thing with Feathers, in which the author was saying hope was symbolizing, like hope as a bird. They were saying that hope was a bird, which it isn't literally, but they were using the symbolism to mean that. Now, mood, I'm not going to get into now because we're going to talk about it later. So imagery is writing that appeals to the senses, smell, sight, touch, hearing, or taste. For example, she smelled like a bouquet of fresh cut flowers. It's making you smell what the author is smelling, what they're tasting, what they're seeing. Alliteration versus assonance. Alliteration is repetition of consonant sounds. For example, Peter, Piper, picked. All of them have the P sound. Of a peck, of pickled, peppers. We have a repetition of the P sound, while assonance is a repetition of similar vowel sounds. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Here we have the EA sound. It's repeating the same EA sound. Dreary, weak, weary. Now, moving along, we have idioms, which if you remember, we played the game in class about idioms. It's a word or phrase that means something that is not the literal meaning. For example, a piece of cake, which means easy. In hot water, which means in trouble. A little birdie told me, which means someone told me that I don't want you to know who it is. Or call it a day, which means to be done, to quit. Now, repetition and rhyme. Repetition is exactly what it sounds like it is. It's the repeating of the same words or phrases to make emphasis or make an idea clearer. We'll get into an example in a second. And then rhyme is the similarity of sound between words or endings of words. Now, rhyme scheme is written in these forms, A, B, B, A, B, A, B. I'll get into that in a second. So repetition in this poem that we read in class, I do not like the feeling. We have I do not like. I do not like, I do not like. It's repeating to emphasize, to let you know that this is what they want you to see. Now, in terms of rhyme, we have this poem by Robert Frost, which we read before. So in the poem, it reads, the people along the sand all turn and look one way. They turn their back on the land, they look at the sea all day. Here, the rhyme scheme is A, B, because sand rhymes with land, so it's A, and way rhymes with day, which means it's BB. You assign the same letter to the same rhyme. Now, let's go into the parts of the poem we're just doing. Lines versus stanzas. A line or a verse is a single line of poetry, and a stanza is a group of lines. For example, in this poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay, we have one stanza because it's not separated. It's like almost like a paragraph in poetry. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 lines. You can literally count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now this entire thing is a stanza because again, it's like a paragraph in poetry. Now, tone versus mood. Tone is the attitude of the writer or speaker. We did talk about this recently. So in this example, we said the tone could be reflective or thoughtful. Now that we're done with that, you can go into the other link and take a quick review quiz in the Google Forms. That's it. I'll see y'all next time.